Florida judges and courts, cops and sheriffs were investigated and found to be racist in their rulings against blacks and the poor. Not they are trying to find a college to do a study to prove they're not racist. HT investigation. Judges tap new college for study. School challenges newspapers' work, but professors' report has its own problems. By Josh Salmon and Emily L. E. Cuz. Staff writers. Judges stung by a Herald Tribune investigation into racial bias in the courts worked with New College of Florida to discredit the newspaper's reporting and try to thwart the legislation it inspired. The collaboration yielded a 29-page report released in March that analyzes a portion of the millions of court records examined by the newspaper and concludes the Herald Tribune's methodology was flawed and its conclusions dubious. But the New College professor who authored the study told the Herald Tribune he doesn't understand the data he analyzed, acknowledged he made errors in his analysis and failed to prove that judges should not be held accountable for criminal sentencing. "I don't really understand the data," said Patrick McDonald, New College Director of Data Science. "I'm a newcomer to this field. I'm an amateur at this." McDonald agrees with the newspaper's statistical findings. See bias, A8. Bias. Continued from A1. That black defendants in Florida face longer sentences than whites for the same crimes, although he doesn't believe judges bear sole responsibility for it, and said he supports the legislation his study is being used to fight. Senate Bill 382 would require the state to collect and analyze court records to identify racial bias in criminal sentencing. The bill was inspired by the newspaper's December series Bias on the Bench. Despite his misgivings, McDonald shared his report with the 12th Judicial Circuit, knowing it would be used to battle that legislation. According to emails obtained by the Herald Tribune, McDonald coached court officials on what to say to help combat the judicial bias bill. Armed with McDonald's study, senior Judge Lee Hayworth drove 700 miles round trip from Sarasota to Tallahassee, where he appeared before the State Senate Criminal Justice Committee on March 6 to testify against the bill. Hayworth said judges aren't to blame for racial bias in criminal sentencing. He argued the majority of sentences derive from plea deals negotiated between the defendant's attorney and the prosecution, and judges say they play no part in those negotiations. Hayworth then pointed to the New College study, saying it would undermine the Herald Tribune's reporting. New College of Florida, which is the Honors College of Florida, has made a very serious study of this, Hayworth told the lawmakers. They'll be having a report coming out, and, basically, what they'll say in the report is that the methodology used by the newspaper is flawed and you cannot trust the results. Although the series inspired the legislation, the bill does not require the state to use the newspaper's methodology in analyzing court data. The State Office of Program Policy Analysis and Government Accountability, or OPAGA, would devise its own method of statistical analysis. Lawmakers temporarily postponed the bill after Hayworth's testimony, but it could be reintroduced later in the session. Senator Audrey Gibson, D. Jacksonville, who sponsored the legislation, said she was surprised by the pushback from judges. "I still have not figured out the negativity from judges on why we shouldn't look at this data," Gibson said. "There should be no pushback to look at data already available, to see if there's room for improvement." Gibson added that the bill is not about judges. "It's not about any particular group or agency," she said. "It's about justice, and we should want to look at that. The data we already have will show us everything, and that's all this bill is about." Senator President Joe Negrin, R. Palm City, said the criminal justice system should be regularly evaluating itself to make sure the administration of justice in Florida treats all Floridians equally under the law. "I've learned my lesson." Herald Tribune reporters spent a year analyzing millions of court and prison records. They also crossed the state to interview more than 100 legal experts, scholars, and criminal defendants. The analysis revealed that blacks are found guilty more often than whites accused of the same crimes. Black defendants also spend more time in lockup and are given fewer second chances to erase their criminal records. The reporting was not perfect. The newspaper ran a clarification online after misidentifying a judge who ruled on a case featured in the series. But the overarching conclusions reached by Herald Tribune remain unaltered. Although one of the stories in the 4-day series highlighted the role of police and prosecutors in the widespread disparities, most of the reporting focused on judges. That's because the series is based on sentencing data, and because judges alone sign sentencing orders and have discretion over those sentences, including those derived from plea deals. Along with its analysis, the newspaper published a list of judges in Florida with the widest discrepancies when it comes to sentencing defendants of different races for third-degree felonies. 12th Circuit Chief Judge Charles Williams placed near the top of that list. Emails obtained by the Herald Tribune show Williams and 12th Circuit officials criticizing the newspaper's series within days of publication. They said they believed the methodology was flawed but lacked the expertise to prove it, so they reached out to New College. New College President Donald O'Shea agreed to help. He called the series a hatchet job in an email to Judge Hayworth and said his faculty and staff would analyze the data. The Herald Tribune requested an interview with O'Shea, but he declined. Officials from the 12th Circuit and New College met on January 18 and McDonald agreed to take on the project with help from his students. 2 weeks later, the two organizations collaborated on a letter to Harvard University's Shorenstein Center, arguing that the Herald Tribune should not win the prestigious Goldsmith Prize for Investigative Journalism, for which the newspaper had been named as a finalist. The letter, and nearly 100 pages of supporting documents, criticized the newspaper for a lack of transparency, for failing to provide raw data, algorithms, or software used to process the data, and for not properly discussing its methodology. The same points were later repackaged into New College's study that Judge Hayworth mentioned in his speech before the Senate Judiciary Committee. But before putting together the Shorenstein letter and the college study, neither McDonald nor any of his team of 12 graduate students and faculty members contacted Herald Tribune reporters to ask for the data or the algorithms. McDonald said he didn't know. Investigations editor Michael Braga provided instructions to the 12th Circuit in December on how to obtain the original data used for the analysis and then shared the newspaper's methods and algorithms. Judge Williams forwarded all that information to O'Shea at New College, and O'Shea sent an email back expressing surprise that Braga was so forthcoming. Included in the correspondence was a December 22 email where Braga told Williams he would be more than willing to talk to Dr. McDonald or anyone else about the methodology we used for the Bias on the Bench project. But McDonald claims he never received any of the Herald Tribune's information and knew nothing about Braga's invitation to meet. He did not reach out to Braga until after he completed his study. The study maintains that judges should be evaluated only on sentences they dole out after trial and criticizes the newspaper for including plea deals in its analysis, even though experts contacted by the Herald Tribune say that including plea deals is standard practice for sentencing studies. The report then provides its own data analysis of 12th Circuit judicial sentencing. But the study's analysis is based on data that McDonald failed to understand and properly clean, a point he now acknowledges. McDonald, who has never done a criminal justice study before, said he didn't contact experts in the field who conduct similar studies until after he finished his second draft, nor did he contact experts familiar with the offender-based transaction system, the database that both he and the Herald Tribune used for their analysis. As a result, he kept duplicate records he should have omitted and tossed other records he should have kept. The OBTS data is compiled by county clerks across the state. Every time a new event occurs in a criminal's case, a new line of data is created in the system. That line may simply state that a prosecutor has been assigned or that one of the charges against a defendant has been dropped. Over time, dozens of duplicate lines of data build up for one criminal defendant's case, and those duplicate lines need to be removed before meaningful analysis is possible. It took the Herald Tribune more than 6 months to complete the process. Stelios Manias, the court operations consultant who oversees the OBTS data for the state's Office of Court Administrator, said the only way to eliminate duplicates is by using 4 of the database's 117 fields. But McDonald did not use those fields. Instead, he chose 2 of his own. MacDonald also failed to obtain data from the Department of Corrections, which the newspaper used for the majority of its reporting. He told the Herald Tribune that it never occurred to him to look at it. "I've learned my lesson," MacDonald said. A terrible oversimplification. 5 sentencing experts asked by the Herald Tribune to review New College's study called its methodology flawed. They support the newspaper's original findings that judges are responsible for the racial discrepancies in the sentences they impose, and they further question the college's motives. The New College study is not convincing, and its author doesn't. See bias, A9. New College President Donald O'Shea called the Herald Tribune's report on racial disparities in the court a hatchet job. Herald Tribune staff photo / Thomas Bender. Patrick MacDonald, New College's data science director, says he does not understand the OBTS data. "I'm an amateur at this," he said. Courtesy photo. Judge Charles Williams says prosecutors and defense attorneys are far more responsible for bias in the court system than judges. That's because they are the ones who negotiate plea deals, and plea deals make up 98% of all decisions in the 12th Circuit. Herald Tribune staff photo / Dan Wagner. Bias. Continued from A8. Understand the criminal justice system, said John Kramer, Professor Emeritus at Pennsylvania State University and a nationally recognized sentencing expert who has conducted similar studies using OBTS in other states. Kramer called the study a terrible oversimplification of the complexities of the court system. He also said the New College professor appears to have spent more time defending 12th Circuit judges rather than conducting a serious analysis. Cyrus O'Brien, a data researcher for Florida State University's Project on Accountable Justice, also criticized the New College study. "I don't think that this is a meaningful analysis," O'Brien wrote in an email to the newspaper. "It appears, to me, that the point is to obfuscate and confuse. This isn't really an effort to understand what's going on in Florida's court system." MacDonald said his original goal was to measure judicial bias as opposed to bias throughout the entire criminal justice system. He said the Herald Tribune proved racial disparity exists in sentencing, but not how much of it can be attributed solely to judges. That was his mission: figure out how much of a role judges played. The goal of the study was to conduct a rigorous, statistically sound way on how you would apply bias to judges, he said. "I agree with your conclusion and analysis that there is bias in the criminal justice system. I only disagree when you blame the judge." Despite his efforts, MacDonald said he failed to determine the truth and will abandon his original mission. "My interests are evolving," he said. "First it was purely mathematical. It was how to understand plea data to pin a charge of bias on a single individual. But I don't know if that's possible. I don't think that will ever happen. The sentence is up to the judge." When presented with MacDonald's reservations about the New College study, Williams and the 12th Circuit sent an email to the Herald Tribune saying they still supported the research. They said the conclusions remain unchanged, and MacDonald told them that he stands by his work. "We have consistently said we do not have the expertise to critique your statistics," the 12th Circuit said in the email. "We will continue to rely on the college's conclusions because we consider them more trustworthy and scientific than what we saw in the paper." Judge Hayworth echoed that sentiment when contacted by the Herald Tribune following his Senate testimony. "I don't feel confident to explain to you what's in the report," Hayworth said. "I don't have the expertise to see if the methodology is good or bad. But the folks, who graduated from MIT and Harvard working at New College sure do." Williams, Hayworth, and 12th Circuit officials also reiterated their principal argument, that judges cannot be held responsible for racial bias in sentences imposed as the result of plea agreements. "Judges don't pick the sentences," the 12th Circuit said in a statement regarding New College study. "The defendants do, after they and their attorneys reach an agreement and present it to the judge in open court. So, to the extent there is racial disparity, it cannot originate with judges." At his appearance before the Senate Judiciary Committee in Tallahassee. See bias, A10. Kenneth Nunn, a University of Florida law professor and assistant director of its Criminal Justice Center, says, it's judges' responsibility to make sure justice is served. Herald Tribune staff photo / Dan Wagner. Cyrus O'Brien, a data researcher for Florida State University's Project on Accountable Justice, said the new college study seemed meant to obfuscate and confuse. Courtesy photo. Bias. Continued from May 9. Earlier this month, Hayworth pointed out that 98% of all sentences in the 12th Circuit derive from plea deals. The judge's job is not to second-guess the plea, Hayworth said. It's to make sure the plea is voluntary, that defendants have their wits about them, that they're not being coerced, that they know what they're doing and that they've accepted the sentence. Hayworth added that judges don't have time to participate in plea negotiations because they oversee as many as 1,200 plea deals every year. I've done as many as 75 pleas in one day, Hayworth said. There is no way the most earnest judge, the most seriously committed to racially neutral sentencing, can be faulted if a post-mortem looks at his or her cases and says it looks like there's a pattern of discrimination here. But removing plea deals from the analysis contradicts the methods used by sentencing experts across the country. The U.S. Sentencing Commission's studies of judicial behavior include plea bargain cases, so do Yale Law Journal papers. The sentence is up to the judge, regardless if there is a plea, Kramer said. It doesn't tie the judge's hand. The judge makes the sentence. The judge is responsible for what's going on their court. To throw out these plea cases would not be appropriate. When a plea is on the table, the parties will talk over a deal, what the charges will be, and whether a prosecutor will make a recommendation to the judge on a sentence. About 10% of pleas come with a so-called fixed sentence negotiated as part of the deal, meaning judges cannot alter them, only accept or reject the deal, said Kenneth Nunn, a University of Florida law professor and assistant director of UF's Criminal Justice Center. Nunn says most pleas in Florida either allow the judge to pick the sentence altogether or the sentence is suggested, but the judge is not bound by that recommendation. The judge has a lot of authority in these cases, Nunn said. Nunn acknowledges pressure on judges to accept the recommendation that has been discussed, so defense lawyers and the prosecution are not blindsided by a decision. But he also said lawyers will tailor their deals to fit the qualities of a judge. One judge may be more lenient than another, and defense lawyers and prosecutors know that, so they push for specific judges, Nunn said. That happens all of the time. Nunn touted proposed judicial accountability legislation to bring consistency to the system and give judges more tools to ensure that sentences and pleas are fair. He believes the pushback is unwarranted. It's sad, Nunn said of the reaction. There are a lot of extended benefits that people get from the system the way it is, and nobody wants to change that. To some degree, to say there are problems we need to fix is threatening to the whole ecosystem, and nobody wants to open that can of worms. At the end of the day, it's the judge's responsibility to make sure justice is served. They cannot just sit back and take deals that are not fair. The judge is the most powerful person. The irony of the new college study is that when judges are evaluated solely on the basis on sentencing decisions after trials, as the new college study suggests is appropriate, judges appear even more biased than when plea deals are included in the analysis. Florida judges give white defendants 2 years and 7 months behind bars when convicted of a third-degree felony following a trial, according to a Herald Tribune analysis of OBTS criminal cases filed from 2004 to 2016. Those same trial judges lock up blacks for almost 4 years. That's 43% more time in lockup, an additional 13 months. The Herald Tribune restricted its analysis to judges who have tried at least 10 cases for each race. When plea deals are included, the disparity between blacks and whites drops. Blacks spend only 8% more time in lockup than whites for third-degree felonies, which are the least serious and broadest class of felonies. The same trend holds when evaluating certain judges, including Williams. The Herald Tribune's analysis of OBTS data shows that Williams gives blacks double the time on average for third-degree felonies, pleas included. When those defendants fight their charges in court, taking a gamble on trial, the sentencing gap between races swells. In trial cases, Williams locks up blacks for 149% more time than whites, more than 3 extra years in state confinement, the Herald Tribune's OBTS analysis shows. Williams declined to comment on the numbers. But the 12th Circuit sent an email to the Herald Tribune saying the court reviewed the 97 trials that Williams has presided over since becoming a judge in 1998. After this review, we are confident that any reviewer would conclude that Judge Williams showed no bias in sentencing these individuals, the 12th Circuit said, adding that it will place summaries of all Judge Williams' trials on the court's website. When it comes to plea deals, Williams told the Herald Tribune late last year that prosecutors and police are to blame for those disparities. The judges are made out to be the most powerful people in the justice system, Williams said. I think the most powerful people are the prosecutors and law enforcement officers. Legal experts, court officers, and university professors, however, told the Herald Tribune that the idea that judges play a minor role in sentencing is absurd. The whole argument that the judge is a victim of this Herald Tribune series is laughable, said Howard Finkelstein, the public defender in Broward County. The judge is the most powerful person in the criminal justice system. For a judge to say they're being victimized for the sentences they've imposed, it's laughable. The bottom line is that black people get stopped more often than white people, black people get searched more often than white people, black people get arrested more often than white people, black people get prosecuted more harshly than white people, black people get sentenced more harshly than white people. A10 Investigations editor Michael Braga said he would be willing to meet with Pat McDonald or anyone else regarding the Herald Tribune's method.
Hey Sheriff, we have a question about why your office, your intelligence division, is investigating private citizens for criminal investigation that happen to be activists that are overseeing your department. Why would you have your intelligence division investigate private citizens? We have done... Sir, we don't hate anyone. We love freedom and we love American people. And government is out of control. That's why you're seeing such a revolt nationwide. Why can't you just answer, why is Susan Edwards, your intelligence division, investigating private citizens? This should not happen.
Are you here to apply for a job?
Possibly I might be applying for a job, but that's irrelevant to my question. Why would you ask that question?
Well, enjoy the fair.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Excuse you?
Excuse me, sir.
So those of you that haven't
Wow.
been on a bike before, we're
Sheriff's
just
getting a little too pushy.
is
You
the
work
first
for
part.
us, Sheriff.
And
Just
keeping
keep that in mind. At one time, we respected you, but not with that type of attitude.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Charlotte County COPWATCH with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave let's say actually yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where at least I can do it. 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is if I got some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations And more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. You know, 47,000 of you so far right now. You know, $1 a day. I mean, $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.